Hello and welcome. Today we're speaking with Bronte May, and it's a very epic episode. She is a naturopath that helps others heal their thyroid health. She went on a self-healing journey with that and has very interesting perspectives on this. It is from an energetic perspective. You don't have to believe in any of that, I think, to enjoy this episode, but if you want to get your mind blown, you do want to listen to her talk about this. She has put her heart and soul into it and has some epic things to say about it. We connected really deeply on a level that I haven't experienced with like too many people very quickly. So this episode was a lot of fun. I think you'll really enjoy it. So please do let me know what you think about it at the end and enjoy. Hello, welcome everybody to this episode. We have Bronte May on today. I'm so excited to have you here based on our conversation last week. We just met and we talked for 2 hours. This is
Yeah,
going to
that's
be a great
wild.
episode. Hi.
Hi, thanks for having me.
Amazing. So you're a naturopath, and we're going to talk a lot about thyroid health because that is something that you were able to self-heal, and I can't wait to hear what unfolds with that. I do always like to start the episode though with digging into what you're doing right now. What are you doing in your business? What does your life look like right now?
Yeah. Um, yeah, so I'm nomadic at the moment, traveling around, doing house sitting and exploring where it is I want to settle after leaving Melbourne from living there 15 years. And in my business, what I've been really enjoying doing is supporting my clients through the emotional healing. Yeah, I was doing only the naturopathy aspect of healing for, the beginning years of my business. And then as I picked up more modalities to support my clients through the emotional healing, I've realized that that's really, really where the magic happens in healing. Deep, deep, profound healing is unlocked when we move into the emotional aspects of healing. And it's also what I'm even more passionate about than naturopathy, actually, if I'm honest. Yeah, I mean,
Incredible.
I love the physical aspects of healing, and it must also be included. However, we are mind, body, spirit. And so then all of those aspects I feel must be included to unlock that deeper, profound healing that I mentioned. Yeah.
Yeah, definitely. And I feel like that's really overlooked that the mind, the body are one piece. I was just thinking about that, but with doctors, and I was just speaking with one, and they were like, "Oh, that's not connected," and I was like, "Oh, but is it? Is it not?"
Mm.
So I'm
Yeah.
excited to hear your perspective on it. Um, we, well, I would love to know, like, what is your overall mission with what you're doing?
Oh, my overall mission and deep, deep passion is to remind people who they are,
Mm,
remind my patients of how powerful they actually are as their own healer. I often say to my clients that, we're all on a journey of remembering, and some of us just remember more than others. So it's not that the next person is more powerful than you are. You are just as powerful. You just haven't remembered yet. And so that's what I support my clients through, is that journey of remembering who they are.
that's so profound. I absolutely love that. Um, I am curious, where do you see this business going in the next 12 months? What do you feel like? What's the vision?
These are good questions. Um, so I'm in the process of actually flipping my business. I actually haven't even spoken to many people about this. So now it's out there in your
Yeah.
podcast. So like I mentioned before, for many years it was my naturopathy was my business and helping people through those physical aspects of healing. And yeah, I did do other things as far as mindset, but I didn't have the tools to support them through the emotional aspects. And like I mentioned, like that is something that really lights me up. Like I can feel my frequency now talking about it, like just shifting upwards as I speak about it, because it excites me. And I know that that is the magic of healing, is in the emotional body, and also unlocking, like I said, that power that is within us, that healing power within us, and the knowingness of that. And so my vision for my business is instead of the naturopathy being in the forefront and these emotional healing tools that I, provide for my clients is in the background, I want to flip it. So I'll still be helping my patients with the physical aspects of healing, But yeah, what I'll be more so speaking about is the emotional and spiritual aspects of healing.
Mm-hmm. Well said. And that sounds really exciting. Um, so I would think it would be great then now to bring you into just speaking about your journey with healing and what that was like for you. So you had thyroid autoimmune condition.
Yeah.
Um, did you want to just start with that? So how were you initially diagnosed with that?
So I think for most people who are diagnosed with a chronic illness, there was a period of stress that happened in their life. And so it's kind of like the straw that broke the camel's back. However, it was already brewing in the emotional body, and that's where it starts. So for me, oh gosh, it's probably my whole life it was brewing. I had a really challenging childhood, and then at the time of my initial diagnosis, I was initially diagnosed with hyperthyroidism. Knowing what I know now, I actually had Graves because they tested the antibodies and they were through the roof back then. But my doctor's like, oh, don't worry about that. You know,
Mm-hmm.
rushed over it. It's actually probably negligence. But anyway, it's how the story unfolded, and it couldn't have happened any other way. But so for me, leading into that diagnosis, I had a really stressful 12 months. I was in a toxic relationship, and it was like drawn out breakup over almost 12 months. And yeah, I was just like a fragment of myself coming out of that relationship. And so around that time that the relationship ended, within weeks, I was diagnosed with hypothyroidism. Now, what I understand now about the emotional body is because the body was in this hypervigilant state for the period of that relationship. And then when that threat was removed, the body was like, ah, now I can go into the healing phase. And so that's when I was diagnosed. And so what happens in the emotional body is, you're in this hypervigilant state. And when you get diagnosed with something or you get symptoms, so say you get a cold or a flu, those symptoms is actually the healing phase. You don't get the symptoms when you're in the issues, in the conflict stage. You get the symptoms when you move out of that into the healing stage. And that's what's not taught either. When you go and get your diagnosis, you're told that you're sick, but you're actually not. You're healing. Only thing is, if this conflict keeps looping, then you don't complete the healing phase. And that is what chronic health is. When you get a chronic condition that keeps looping, it's because the healing hasn't completed. And so we need to figure out what was in the emotional body. So anywho, was diagnosed with hypothyroidism, went on the meds, went and had some other holistic treatments, and within 7 months was off the meds and in remission. Fine. Fast forward 3 years, another big stressful event happened, and I had a relapse and then was diagnosed with Graves. From there, I went to see the endocrinologist. They gave me 3 options, well, essentially 2 options. So one was to have my thyroid removed or have my thyroid ablated, so radioactive iodine, which both of those would either remove the thyroid gland or shut the thyroid gland down, and then I'd have to be on medication forever. No choice about it because your thyroid's not functioning or you don't have it. And I said, well, what happens if I stay on the anti-thyroid meds? And they said, well, there's risk with that as well. I was like, okay, like these were really horrible options for me. So I left that appointment in absolute inconsolable tears and spoke to a dear friend of mine who was working in the medical industry. And she had gone paleo years prior and was telling me for years, oh, you should do this paleo diet thing. And I'm like, I've always been thin. Like, I don't need no diet. Like, what do I need that for? And it's just some other fad diet. Like, no, 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 no. I thought I was healthy. You know, I ate meat and three veg kind of thing every night. But then when I was backed into a corner with my health and I didn't want the allopathic options that were presented to me, I was like, well, I'm going to try anything. So initially, all I did was I changed my diet. And I had no idea that there were all these other aspects to healing and unlocking a chronic condition. But my friend said, look, I don't know if it's going to like reverse everything, but at least it will give you time to make a decision because you will start to feel better by just changing nutrition. And so that's what I did. But then through that healing journey, yes, I got myself into remission within months by just changing the diet. But then I had many relapses as far as not with essentially just the thyroid, but that sort of stayed stable. However, my antibodies were up and down and up and down. And my TSH was suppressed for quite some time. For years, actually, my TSH was suppressed because I was still in very stressful situations. I had a stressful, demanding job. And then when I decided to study, I was studying full time and working full time. And so my journey with thyroid healing, took quite a few years and quite a lot of trial and error, quite a lot of searching externally. But the internal journey was where I found a lot of the answers as to how to unlock a thyroid, like a chronic autoimmune condition. And so that involved the mindset, and also then when I discovered that going into the emotional body and really getting to the root cause, that's when real profound healing happened. So yeah, that's sort of the story of my thyroid. And that's also what led me to study as well. I realized I had such a deep passion for health and what I was being able to achieve with my own health and my own thyroid condition. I was like, this has not been taught. You go to your endo and your doctor and they brush over things. And my endo told me I was crazy to try and heal myself with food. Like,
Mm.
it's not going to do anything. And so many of my patients get told that as well. And so that's what also drives me, is to share with people and guide them to know that there is another way to heal. If you're willing to be committed and devoted to your own healing journey, and your own wellness, healing is absolutely possible.
That's fascinating. I've never heard anyone describe that the symptom is the healing, and that's really incredible. That makes a lot of sense for like how you speak about it and how you were helping me through my last week illness too. Just I am in the symptom and the healing at the moment. And before that, what was the cause? Really interesting. Um, so after that, you started to study naturopathy, is that right?
Yeah. So when I was going through that, I'd already got myself into remission and had started a new job. And this girl who was part of the catalyst to me studying, she was studying nutrition. And she asked me, like, I noticed that you eat really healthy and you don't eat the snacks that are in the staff kitchen and stuff. She's like, why? Why are you so healthy? So I'd shared my story with her and she's like, oh my goodness, do you realize this is your calling? This is your passion. She said, as soon as you started telling me your story, your energy went from here to here. And she said, you need to do something with this. And I was like, oh my goodness, get out. Like, I was in my mid-30s and I was like, I'm too old to study. I didn't even finish high school. I dropped out at the end of year 11 to go and do a chef apprenticeship. So I thought I had this limiting belief that no, I can't go and do a degree. And how could I? Like, I lived in Melbourne, had no family there. I couldn't, work part-time and go home and live with mum. So yeah, but my friend was like, I'm the same age as you and I'm studying. And so, yeah, I
That's
looked into it and
amazing.
went, okay, I'm going to do it. And it was challenging AF. It's a really challenging degree to do, but also because the intensity of that, but also the intensity of my role. I was the executive assistant for two senior managers in a construction company and a go-to person for 40 people in my team. So yeah, it was a full-on role and I was doing like 10, 12-hour days sometimes at work and then starting study at 7:30 at night until 1 a.m. in the morning, and then studying all day Saturday, all day Sunday.
Mm-hmm.
Um, so I had
How
no
did
social
you,
life.
when you were in that loop though, again, how did you not end up bringing back your thyroid condition? Or did you?
I did. My antibodies went high. Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
And so that was part of the learning as well. My naturopath I saw at the time, he was all fear. He was like, you can't get through this. Something has to give. You have to go part-time at work or you have to go part-time study. Rah, rah, rah. I left that appointment in tears. And this is something I spoke about a few months back on my Instagram. Is one of my pet peeves is the fear pushing. So many people on the holistic side of health and allopathic, they're always pushing fear, but there's people on the holistic side that are pushing the fear too. And I don't agree with that. You get to decide what is your truth.
Mm-hmm.
But for me, when I left there thinking, holy shit, like, what am I going to do? Like, I can't go part-time at work because I can't afford to then, I was living on my own. I thought I had to go into share house. And then there was all this resistance, like there's all these things in the way. So I was like, okay, well, God, you're not supporting me to do that. Show me, what is it? What is the learning here? And the answer that came through was, if you can't control the external environment, which most times we can't, you can control the way that you respond to it. Because I was like, I need to manage the stress. The stress is happening, but it's happening around me, and it doesn't have to happen to me unless I choose for it to. I can choose how I filter that energy that is coming in. And so I chose to meditate every day, and all I did was 5 minutes 3 times a day. And it changed the game. 7 weeks later, I tested my labs, went back to my naturopath, and I was a completely different person who walked in the door. And he was like, whoa. And I sat down, and he's like, you're so different. And I was like, I know, I feel different. He said, what are you doing? Because the bloods don't lie. He said, all your antibodies have gone back down. And so
Wow.
I told him. And now the way he practices is all of his patients must do meditation. So
Interesting. So that was your calling to help him shift his mind, I think. What
maybe.
kind of fear do you feel like he was peddling or the allopathics are really like leaning on?
I mean, I can't say definitively, but my perspective on some of it is like in the allopathic model, it's their due diligence to let you know worst case scenario. Because if that was to occur and they didn't warn you, then there could be a legal issue,
Liabilities.
right?
Yeah.
Yeah.
And in the holistic side?
And then in the holistic side, it can be partly that too, possibly. But what I do feel, I shouldn't say what I know, what I feel about the allopathic model, and this could be the same in the holistic space and any kind of coaching space, is if you don't need me, what happens to my business?
Mm-hmm.
Right? So the allopathic model of big pharma is get them locked in to need the medication because that's how they make their revenue. Holistic, get the patient locked in to need the practitioner so their business keeps going. It's their livelihood. It's
Perhaps
how
some of
they pay their
them.
bills,
Yeah.
right? So I'm not saying all of people are like this, but you know, I feel like it's more an integrity to empower the patient to remember who they are, to know that they actually are their own healer, but give them the tools to pick up to be able to do that and not be so reliant on you. Like a lot of my patients, I don't see them after
Mm-hmm.
they leave. They don't come back. And, some do, some go through relapse. Something happens in life. Life happens, like a big stressful event happens, or they go through pregnancy and that can change things. Your hormones change. So often, they could come back because of that, but they already have the knowledge and the tools. They just need the accountability. But
Yeah.
it's not fearing them. In fact, the opposite. I want them to know that you get to choose what's your reality when someone gives you information. And that includes me with my clients. My first initial consult with my clients is I tell them I don't have all the answers and I'm not a guru. I'll share with you what I know, and you listen to your own body, what is truth for you, what tool you're going to pick up and when and if. But you do the healing and I'll share the tools and the knowledge with you.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Yeah.
That's incredible. Were there any moments that you personally doubted you could overcome it?
Um, Yeah, I guess when I feel like I was doing all of the things and it wasn't happening, but there's a lesson in that as well. There's a lesson in trusting the divine wisdom of the body. It's beyond what we can cognitively understand. There is a
Mm-hmm.
wisdom in our body, and surrendering to what the lessons are that's been presented. Like it's really like a lot of the times, I see this with my own patients and even my own journey, that impatience of like, why is it not happening yet? Like I'm
Mm-hmm.
doing all the things, I've been doing this for 6 months or 12 months or 18 months. And yeah, I get it. I was there too. And as soon as I started to surrender to the process and embrace the fact that I had a thyroid imbalance and what was it here to teach me, then the gifts started to be revealed. Well, they were probably already been revealed, but I started to see them.
Start to listen. Yeah.
Yeah.
Um, how would you start leaning into that trust? I understand why they're rushing because they're like, we're doing all the things. I might have to shift gears. How do you instill that in someone or yourself to be able to keep going? Like, how do you know that you are doing all the right things?
I guide my patients back into the intuition within themselves and starting to really open up that pathway of communication with their own internal guidance instead of the seeking externally for those answers.
Mm-hmm.
That,
Beautiful.
that guidance back in, because what's the next step for you? Only your body knows that. And if you don't have a direct communication with it, you're only going to be guessing,
Mm-hmm.
So I bring that awareness in to my consults of how to guide them to that inner voice and how to listen.
Mm-hmm.
Um,
So
yeah.
ultimately, you bring them like a roadmap that you can see works, you can see you've experienced, there's a lot of milestones in there that you can see work, and then they can take what works them, or they come throughout the whole process, but then they can feel into what actually feels right. Is that right?
Yeah, I mean,
Yeah.
it's a constant communication. It's any relationship that you have, right, with yourself,
Mm-hmm.
with somebody else. It's that constant check-in. This is what I feel. How does that feel?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. Um,
What kind of struggles do they typically have, your clients, like internal struggles?
the mindset, the
Mm-hmm.
fear that they like, it's like, oh yeah, I believe that I can heal. However, the thought behind the thought doesn't believe it. So
Mm-hmm.
that's in the subconscious, right? And so then we have a session um to repattern that, to like to reset the story that's running here. So I
Mm-hmm.
take them through a process to reset the subconscious on that so that they can move that block out of the way. And so each time it's like listening to what is their blocks in the way, what are the stories that are coming up, what is the language that they're using, that I get curious and be like, oh, so I just noticed that you said da 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 da. And we just start to explore that thought, to see if it's in the way, or it's checking in on how they're feeling. So I'm always listening to how they're languaging things, because it's a guide as to where their frequency is currently at, where their belief system's currently at. And is
Mm-hmm.
it a belief system that's serving their highest healing potential, or is it in the way of, yeah, without going into the whole process. But yeah,
Yeah,
that,
of course. Yeah. It's really interesting. But that does make a lot of sense. Like you're repeating old patterns. So it's not, well, that shadow work stuff. I never call it that, but I've recently heard that. And yeah, then they can release themselves from that and then hopefully just focus on what they're actually working on, their thyroid. Um, can you share any like milestones that you experienced as you were working through yours that were showing you that you were on the right track personally?
hmm, that was on the right track. I guess it's more so how I feel. I mean, initially I was testing labs quite regularly, to see those markers move in the right directions. Um, I don't test my body as much anymore now. But I've been in remission for years. So yeah, that's a difference. Yeah, it's different. So initially I was testing, but yeah, I don't know. I can't really think of like milestone. I guess it was when I started to see those antibodies go down, but that's happened so many times because, like I said, it's been a journey of up and down for me because of the stress that was happening. So my stress went up when I was studying. My stress went up when 2020 happened and I moved into state. Yeah, so yeah, I
Mm-hmm.
don't, that's probably how I've gauged it, but more so how I feel in my body. That little story of doubt that was hanging around in the background when I wasn't quite in remission, yeah, that's gone. There's like a real knowing and a real trust in my system.
Mm-hmm.
And I'm so in tune with my body, and I really let my body guide me. So I'm quite, yeah, that like that line of communication with my intuition is quite clear for me in the way that I move through my day to day, or how I move through challenges, triggers. Um, yeah.
Mm. Do you feel like we were talking about this earlier, but do you feel like you worry about getting ill again?
Um, with regards to the thyroid, no. I don't worry about that. There is, if I'm honest, like a fear that is somewhat present about what might happen in my elder years, because that's the story that's pushed, which is really interesting you asked this question because I didn't speak to this before we recorded. Um, Yeah, and that's something that I get to, I get to listen to and have a look at, is that long-term story. So my why with regards to my health and what keeps me going is that I want a quality of life now until my final breath. I want to keep my independence so that I can cook my own meals and clean my own house and shower myself, take myself to the bathroom. I don't want to be dependent on someone to do these things for me, because I've seen it in other elderly family friends where they lose their independence, and I really don't want that for myself. And so that was a decision I made years ago. I got really clear on my why, what I was moving away from, what I was moving towards, and that's what keeps me devoted to my health. But in answer to your question about the fear, I don't trust the allopathic model of medicine. I don't trust their care. I don't trust that they have my best interests at heart. I don't trust their approach. I think if I was to cut my finger off and need stitches, yeah. But when it comes to um, illness prevention and how to treat chronic illness, for me personally, I don't trust their model. And so for me, what could happen when I get older? Who knows? Like, what if? And so, yeah, I guess that's something for me to look at, is to really
Yeah.
look at those belief systems so that I can still hold the knowing that age doesn't need to come with illness. It certainly doesn't. And I know that, but I think the thought behind the thought, there is fear that I personally need to address. Um, yeah.
Yeah. Do you feel like those boundaries that you put up to protect yourself, like, wanting to be independent, sorry, and things like that, is there anywhere like in your life, in your relationship, that might be affecting you, impacting you more negatively now that you've moved out of having to use those boundaries to heal yourself? Does that make sense?
Which boundaries to heal myself?
So you use the boundaries of, I need to be independent and I need to take care of myself in that way. Do you feel like that's affected any of your relationships?
Oof. Never even thought about that. Um, no, I don't feel so, but because I feel like, for me anyway, my perspective is that I am responsible for me. My health and wellness is my responsibility. And yeah, you can have other people support you. Like if you have a partner that's also health conscious, that helps, right? That you can do that together. You can cook healthy meals together. Yeah, that makes it easier. But ultimately, if my partner is not doing that, I'm still responsible for what I put in my body.
Yeah, of
And
course.
to be clear of why I'm doing it really helps. So I don't feel that it's a barrier. I feel, for me, my level of commitment to my health is my devotion, and it's my reverence to my own temple.
Mm,
Um, like I think it's a blessing to have this human experience, to have this vessel to carry your soul around in and have this human experience. Like the human experience is awesome. It's wild.
yeah,
With
great.
the ups and downs and all of it. And when we go back to the all-knowing place, wherever you believe that is, you don't have this contrast. So I want to enjoy the time that I have here, and I also want to be grateful for the gift of this life. And yeah, like I said, that devotion to looking after my temple.
Hmm.
So that's how I see it, not as a control thing or dependent on anybody else. It's like,
Hmm.
we can travel through this life. Oh, this is so interesting what we were talking to before. So this kind of answers what we were talking before. We can travel through this life alone, and we do. And also, it's nice to share it with somebody that you feel soul aligned with as well.
Yeah,
But at the end of the day, it doesn't mean that if you're not traveling with someone who's soul aligned, that you can't enjoy it.
yeah,
I think
and it can't
that
be
was,
the same. Those
yeah,
are
I think,
those are a few things I work through as well, like finding independence, but finding the independence while still being with someone. I work through that, and similar with diet and nutrition and things like that. Like I ended up with someone that wasn't into that because I was kind of in a weird space with that as well. I was in a place with my body that I wasn't being kind to it. Um, I was trying to look after it, but I was over looking after it as well. I was overdoing everything. So that was like its own level of unhealthy. and then really accepting the fact that I can still look after myself how I want to, even though they're looking after themselves in a different way, and not falling into the victimhood of them, not doing all the things, and, them, whatever it is, the little thing, like they had the chocolate bar when I'm trying to be healthy, or, and then you're dealing with that yourself. You're like, I'm ultimately responsible for it. So I can't keep putting blame on them. That was something I had to work through as well. So I was curious about that with the relationships. But yeah, I love that we were talking about your fear of dying, but you don't have a fear of dying. You have a fear of just the illness now.
Yeah, yeah. It's not really, it's only slightly there. Like, I'm just like, well, what if, because we're so indoctrinated into believing that you need health cover, and that when you get older, that comes with illness. Like, you hear it all the time. Your granny,
Mm-hmm.
your aunts, your uncles are just like, yeah, getting old sucks. And
Yeah.
I'm like, I
The
don't
more
want
I
that.
see older people though, I'm like starting to see all of the like the octogenarians, or anyway, like even in any normal in normal um country that aren't octo countries, they are just living better qualities of life now too. And the other the ones that are outside of the system. So they're really convincing me to just be like, well, why are we relying on this system?
Mm. But yeah, but it's just even allowing those stories to become your belief system, that
Mm-hmm.
aging, yeah, I hear it all the time. I just getting old as shit. Yeah,
Yeah.
aging sucks.
The ones
Um,
that are having a great life are the ones that don't believe that. And I feel like that's
yeah.
the root of it, really.
My godmother is the most incredible lady. I think she's 96 this year, or 95, and she's amazing. I mean, she's had challenges in her life, but I tell you what, when she tells you those stories, she tells it from a positive place.
Mm-hmm.
And she's grateful for what is and what was. And I feel like that's such a key to life. I remember asking her a couple of years ago what her keys to life, like what are her keys to life, having a joyful life and a successful life. And part of it was like being positive. Part of it was, um, letting the people know that you actually love them. I can't remember what the third one was. I'd have to look it up on my Instagram. I did a post about it on my private account, but
Mm-hmm.
essentially what my point to this is that being positive, like, she's just so positive, and it has served her so well. She just went through her own journey with cancer as well. And when she walked into the oncology appointment, they didn't think that they could treat her because of her age. But when she walked in, they were like, oh, wow, like, she's so vibrant.
Mm-hmm.
Uh, and she's come through it as well. So yeah, she's just incredible. And I think that is such a key to life. We have so much to learn if we're aware of watching what happens around us and to the people around us, and just learning from each person's story. But we all know that person who smoked cigarettes and drank alcohol, but they were positive and they lived till they were 99. And then the
Yeah.
person who was like so committed to their health, and like you were saying, they were just like over obsessive about doing everything right, and took all the supplements and exercise, and then they got sick and died at 65. And people were like,
Mm-hmm.
oh, I don't understand what happened. Like, they were so healthy, but they
Their
were
beliefs weren't.
pushing the barriers. Yeah, they were
Yeah.
overworked, overstressed, overstretched as well, and not connected to the joy of life, you know?
Yeah.
So
It's
I
a
think,
common thread I've been noticing too with the previous generations. Like they haven't done the work that we do now, right? But internal work, but they unconsciously have done it. A lot of them constantly spoke to the gratitude of like, at least you have a house over your like a roof
mm,
over your head, or be grateful that like you're able to go to the grocery store and bring home all this food to the roof under your over your head. And just like they always spoke like that, and you're just like you were unconsciously like putting these amazing beliefs into yourself, and no wonder you're living so long.
yeah.
Mm,
Yeah. And how many of us are grateful for those so-called small things that aren't the small things? If you
yeah,
didn't have running water today, how would you feel?
it would be horrible. Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, I was at a house sit a while back, and they had to turn the water off. And I forgot, like, you just forget that it's just a given. You turn the tap on and it turns on. So I've gone to the toilet, and then I couldn't flush the toilet. And I was like, oh, and then I went to wash my hands, and I was like, oh shit, yeah, the water's turned off. And,
Mm-hmm.
just little things like that. But yeah, like, can we come back to being grateful for the roof over our head, the comfy bed to sleep in, clean clothes, running water, being able to have a shower, being able to connect to people that we know that we love and they love us. And yeah,
Yeah, of
even if
course.
that relationship does challenge you, but you still have someone there that loves you.
Hmm.
Mm.
Yeah, there's a lot of importance I put in my life to putting myself outside of the normal. So like changing my space or going somewhere else, or even sometimes at home I sleep the other way on my bed to just like change things up. Just
That's
challenge the normal and learn like how much that can bring into your life of just, if you go camping for one day even and you just bring that gratitude back into your life of like, oh, I can actually wash my hair or the little things. And it's always a good way to look at life, I think. Um,
yeah.
I'd love to know. So initially when you got your thyroid condition or like started, what were like some of the symptoms just so people can be aware, I think.
So for me, because I had overactive, so the
Mm-hmm.
symptoms are different between over and underactive. Some of them can cross over, but for me personally, I had I couldn't stop eating. I was hungry
Interesting.
24/7. If I could have eaten all day and I was still like hungry and losing weight. Um, I had this weird thing with my eyesight, just was weird. Like I couldn't see, it felt like I couldn't see clearly, even though I could see, but I felt like, gosh, do I need my glasses or something? And I'd look at the floor and the floor didn't seem flat. I thought it
Mm-hmm.
was on a cement. And I remember asking my colleagues, is this floor slanting? Does it go downhill? And they're like, no, Bronze, no, it's flat.
Mm.
And I was
Wow.
sure. So I went and got my eyes tested and they were fine. And that's when I went off to the doctors. That was the first time. But 3 years later, when I had the relapse, I still had the hungry thing, but I had this rash from my stomach all the way up to my collarbone. So you couldn't see it when I was dressed at work. Um, but it was just like this rash, and some of it was on my back. I had shortness of breath, just like I'd walk up just a couple of stairs and I'd be like, and I couldn't get a deep breath in. I just couldn't get enough air in. I would go to the gym and I used to warm up on the bike, and within under 90 seconds, because you put your hand on the handlebars and it shows you your heart rate, and it was like 184, 187, like high 180s.
Wow.
Um, and I was like, that doesn't seem right that my heart rate would accelerate that quickly. And so I went and to get my heart tested, not thinking it might be my thyroid. And
Mm-hmm.
they ran a bunch of blood work as well. And that's when it came back that I had a really, really overactive thyroid and really, really high antibodies. My antibodies were over 1300. And the other thing was, what was it? Oh, the mood. I I couldn't stop crying. I was crying every day. Everything just made me cry and I thought, oh my gosh, am I getting depression and anxiety again? Like, do I have like a mental health condition again? Because I'd had depression prior to the first diagnosis of having a thyroid condition. And I was like, oh gosh, like, do I have to go on antidepressants again? Like, I didn't want to go down that route. So when they discovered I had a thyroid condition, my doctor said, look, at least we know that the mood issues that you've had is physiological and not psychological.
Mm-hmm.
Um, and it had to do with the thyroid. So yeah, so when your thyroid's out of balance, it really can affect your mood. Um, Usually for overactive thyroid, there's that irritability. But for me, it was more so depression. And usually that's an underactive symptom. But between overactive and underactive, so you have, when you're overactive, everything's running faster. So you might feel more hot, your bowels might be quicker. Um, your bleed will change as well. So you can have your period stop. Whereas underactive, you might be more constipated, more sensitive to the cold, depressed. Like I said, both of them, your hair can thin out, or the outside thirds of the eyebrows can fall out as well. That's quite a common physical sign. Yeah.
That's fascinating. Is there anything to be said about like why your rash was a hidden rash? Like it seemed very deliberately hidden.
Yeah. I don't know. I
Mm.
haven't looked into that. Didn't look
Yeah.
into what was localized to that area. I would say part of the rash was due to leaky gut. But yeah, there possibly could be the emotional aspect to that as well.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Yeah, interesting. I didn't know all of those symptoms. Really fascinating. Um, all right. I did want to shift gears and talk about I think, more about your business. Um, just curious about like what makes you uncomfortable there, and like what is the edge that you're currently pushing up against with your business, with what you're working on?
My current edge with my business, I guess it is talking more about the emotional aspects of healing without including the physical things, because that's sort of like my safety net was talking all about the physical aspects of healing with thyroid.
Mm-hmm.
Um,
Does it feel like people around you would judge you, or it's like that woo or something that would be dismissed?
um, I don't know. No, I mean, I think, whoever's ready to hear it will receive it. I trust in that, whoever will find me. But yeah, I think I've come past that. Initially, it was that, but they didn't talk about it at all for ages, and now I've started to talk about it, because I was just like, people didn't want to do that aspect of it. But I was finding that the people that were coming to work with me absolutely wanted to do that work.
Mhm.
Well, 90% of them. There was 10% that didn't want to do it. They're like, nah, don't want to do any of that emotional stuff. But I find that that's happening less and less now. So that
Mhm.
I trust in, yeah, the people that need to know what it is that I share, find me. And the people that are ready for it, find me. It's so interesting. Most of the women that come to work with me already have some kind of spiritual aspect to their approach in life, or they have this curiosity that they want to know. They're like, oh my goodness, yeah, I heard about that recently, or this thing happened, and it's got me curious. So they're sort of in um, that frequency or that sphere anyway already.
Yeah, I think naturally you just start attracting those people once you're
Yeah,
raising your vibration by being excited by clearly your passion.
yeah. But I think for me, I also want to move more into how can I begin to facilitate some of this in a group setting so I can help more people.
Mm-hmm.
Because, just working one on one all the time, although I love it because I love going deep. I like, even in general in my life, I love deep connection. Like, I'm not a surface level conversation kind of gal, and that
That
bores
explains our
me.
last 2 hour conversation. Yeah.
And so I love that deep connection with my clients as well, to help them and support them to go deep on their journey. So that's why I love one-on-one work, and because it's so personalized. And so I guess for me, I want to figure out, how can I help more people in a group setting to begin that journey? I think there has to be a point where you do it one-on-one with someone, or maybe it's a solitary experience where you are connected to, the all-knowing place, and that's guiding you for parts of your journey. Yeah.
Yeah, I agree with that. Um,
Mm.
do you ever feel like, or do you feel like past Bronte would have ever been doing what you're doing? What was she like?
Mm. I think that maybe there was always some kind of knowing. As a little girl, I never didn't have anyone to speak to about how I experienced life. And I used to kind of, I guess I don't know why I never talked about it. Maybe I thought that everybody could do it and I was just more sensitive. But I
Mm-hmm.
could feel people's feelings as if they were my own from such a young age. And it was actually overwhelming. Um, and it wasn't until I met my first spiritual healer when I was living in Melbourne, um, a big thing happened in my life that I needed some spiritual guidance on. And this lady helped me to realize what was actually happening, because I would catch up with friends and they would be like, blah, 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 blah about their stuff. And I just energetically took it on, and I would walk away. I need to go home for a nap. And they would be like, oh, Bronze, I love catching up with you. I always feel better after our catch up and after our chat.
Mm-hmm.
Oh, yeah, because I just took it
Yeah,
all on.
I'm the
So,
vessel. Yeah.
so when I realized what was actually happening and learned how to navigate that, that really helped. But the other thing was, I actually shared this with a friend the other day, and I just thought it was normal. I can read quite deeply about a person and their story and who they are through a photograph. And I just thought that that was something everyone could do. And it's not. Uh,
Interesting. Can you
yeah, because
explain?
I had
What was that like?
I remember meeting someone once and went to their house, and this person had a picture of their 3 kids in the fridge, and I just read them. And I said, "Oh, your daughter's like this, and this is like kind of, what her challenges are, what her personality is like, and this is sort of like things that she does or leans into," and read all 3 of them. And this guy was like, "Do you teach at my kid's school?" And I
Oh
was
my
like,
gosh.
"No, I don't. I've never seen your kids before." And he's like, "That's crazy that you could read all of that." Yeah, so
Do you feel like in person or a conversation like this, you do the same? Like, what are my challenges?
because when I share this, that's what people always ask too, "What can you read
Mm.
about me?" And I don't like to share some things, I think.
I
Yeah,
think I naturally do that too, so I can see your hesitation, but that's
yeah.
okay.
We could talk about it
What
off
are
the
my
record.
strengths then? What's one strength you see?
Your ability to see through layers.
Mm, I like that.
Yeah,
I'm
you have an
only tapping
ability
into that now.
you have an ability to see behind the behind, but yours goes this way as well. Yours goes out to the side. So you have like sort of a wider peripheral to see the bigger picture. So you have a wide lens, but you also have a lens that can go deeper behind.
Mm, that's so cool.
Yeah.
Thank you. I needed to hear that. That's really cool. I guess that actually does make sense with what we were talking about before we got on. It ended up going in those kinds of directions. Like, here's the big picture, but what about this, Bronte?
Yeah.
Oh, mm.
Yeah. Yeah.
Oh, I
Yeah. I
love
think you
that.
have quite an innate ability, yeah, to
I had
read.
a I had a recent experience, sorry, with I went to a shaman and I had like a psychedelic experience. So it was to deal with some stuff. But within that, I pretty much all I learned was that I'm thousands and thousands of years old, which I think we all are. But what you're explaining about when you're younger and you could see, like you could feel everything in people, I feel like that's what I was doing as well. And I was a very stressed child. And that moment of realizing I'm thousands of years old or whatever, I was just like, I think it was, I knew what was going on already, but I was really young and that shouldn't have like been my understanding of the world already. So it was like this strange, so I don't know, what you were saying was kind of making me relive that. And like when you're young, I think some of us are already so aware and so then you end up being like hyper vigilant and then you end up being like I ended up being a stressed child. I don't know what you ended up being.
Yeah, I was very hypervigilant most
Mm.
like over my entire childhood, probably, well, even before birth. I was born early. And it is said that, I don't know whether this is absolute truth, but this is a perspective. Those that are born early, it's because they're in, it's usually the mother is stressed,
Mm-hmm.
and then the child is born early because of the mother's stress that needs to separate from that. Yeah, so
Makes
that's
sense. Yeah.
perspective on premature babies.
Interesting. Yeah. There's
Yeah.
definitely a lot I've been digging into about like taking on generational um emotions and feelings and things like that too. I feel like I was born stressed because my generations before me didn't deal with their anxiety and their stress and shoved it
Mm.
down and now I'm dealing with it. Um but yeah, I definitely can see how that would happen if your mother is really stressed and you're just like, well, I would like to leave here now then. Please
Yeah,
let
because
me.
I did a rebirth experience and it was so interesting. That's how it came to me. And oh gosh, I won't go into all the details, but that was epic to do
Mm,
my rebirth and be at my own birth and hold my own self as I was born. Like I
mm-hmm,
was right there and I held myself. And I'm not a mother. And people often will speak to that moment when the mother makes eye contact with their baby for the first time, like how it just, you feel this love, this unconditional love. It's like so overwhelming that you can't even language it.
wow.
I don't think I would ever understand what that felt like until I did this rebirth experience and held my own self. And I sobbed, like, but it wasn't like a sadness, grief. It was just like this overwhelming. I didn't know I could feel this much love in my system when I
Mm-hmm.
held my own self. And so that was really powerful experience actually. But yeah, I got the answers as to why I was born early and saw what was happening, and it was really interesting.
That's beautiful. Do you feel like, so did you visualize that? Do you feel like with your clients too? Sorry, did you visualize that? Was there like visuals to that?
My own experience with my rebirth.
Yeah.
Yeah. But
Yeah.
I'm very visual. Some people aren't. If you've ever
That's
been
what I
to,
wanted to ask. Yes.
Yeah.
Mm.
If you've ever been to had a guided meditation experience, there's some people that just couldn't follow the guidance, whereas I see it in the greatest of detail. Like they'll be like, yeah, you walk out the door and you're walking through this enchanted forest and you can feel that. I can physically see and feel the dirt between my feet. I can see the moss growing on the trees and as I'm walking past and I'll touch it and
Yeah.
I'm I
I can really do that too. I feel like
yeah.
I've built that up. It used to be less vivid. Now it's getting more and more vivid. But I know there's people that can't visualize anything. Like you ever watched like home renovation shows and then they were like explaining it to them and they couldn't visualize it. And I was like, oh, that's horrible. Couldn't live like that. I wonder if like so when you're helping people work through anything, do you feel like have you ever come across people who couldn't visualize, couldn't do what you asked them to?
Um, yeah, but not, I haven't often. I think the guided process that I go through is a bit more somatic
Mm-hmm.
than visual because I am aware that there are people that aren't so visual, but how they experience that internally from the guidance might be quite visual for them, depending on the person. But I do it more of a somatic, so it's
Interesting.
um,
Yeah.
relevant for more people. Yeah.
I love that.
Because
And
I'm even
personally,
aware that people, I think for those of us who have more sensitivities, we just think that that's the norm because it's our norm, it's our
mhm,
everyday experience. And it wasn't until I started doing like more of these self-development workshops and picking up, doing courses and modalities. I did EFT and I did family constellation and I've done NLP and numerous other workshops that you meet people that just don't navigate life in those ways. And that's okay. There's nothing wrong with them. And so if whoever's listening, if they're like, oh my gosh, that's me, is there something wrong that I can't like visualize, whatever? No.
no, everyone's model of the world's different. Yeah, it's really
Yeah.
important.
And your gifts are unique to you. This is why, like, oh gosh, like the freaking Matrix. We're not down that rabbit hole. But anyway, just speaking on the way that we are educated at school, that we all need to learn the same way. We all need to be tested the same way. I met someone recently who has this belief system that he is not that intelligent because he
Mhm,
didn't do well at school and he's in his early 40s and has this limiting belief that he has learning challenges. And I was like, I don't see that to be true. Like the amount of information this person could share about the topics that he's interested in, it's such a depth of understanding and the ability to articulate that so clearly. I was like, you don't have learning challenges at all. You just didn't learn in the way that you were expected to learn at school, the same as everybody else. You learn in a different way to that mainstream way, but that's not the right or the wrong way. There is no right or wrong way. So I feel
mhm.
like we all have our own area of genius and yeah, we're
It
all
makes
tapped
sense.
into the all-knowing place, but how
Yeah.
we translate that is going to be different or how we navigate that is going to be different, right?
Yeah.
Why some people have different clairs than others. Some people get the vision but they don't hear, or they can hear but they can't really feel it, or yeah, or some people have all of them.
Yeah,
Yeah,
great. It makes sense to me in the sense like we're all like this big web of energy. We're all connected, right? Or to me, that's how I believe at least. But like, so we're all feeling different pieces of it. So why would we all have the same talents or the same strengths? Because someone has to lift this to so you can lift the other thing. So I
we
definitely
all have a
agree.
role here.
Yeah. And what you're saying about the education system reminds me of it's like I think it's an Einstein quote. It's something about like you're measuring like fish and other mammals against if they can climb a tree. That old fable. Right.
Yeah, yeah.
Yeah, like the fish is not going to be able to climb the tree, but he can do this swimming. So that's like the guy we were speaking to. He can articulate all this other incredible stuff, but in school, that's not what they were looking for. And they were definitely trying to keep us in a box, but that's different story.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Let's go down that rabbit hole today.
Yeah. Yeah. But I love that. But and like how just that one awareness, that little bit of like I'm sure you gave him that awareness, like how much that's going to change his life moving forward as well.
I hope so. Yeah.
Mm. Because
Yeah.
yeah, we're just measuring against something that's just it doesn't need to be that way. That's not the only measuring stick. Um,
Yeah. And we create our own limiting beliefs. And that
yeah,
can use that in any aspect of your life, whether it's something that you're trying to learn or your healing journey, your financial sector of your life, like anything. Where are your limiting beliefs? When you can unpack and figure out where you're in your own way and then learn how that you can reset that story, watch out.
Yeah, agreed.
Magic happens.
Do you feel like that is important for healing the body as well?
Absolutely. Absolutely. I think we touched on the beginning of your, it's a while back in this recording. Yeah, I think that is really important to unpack,
Yeah,
because
to
we do
search for
stand in
those.
our own way with our limiting belief. Like just the simple one, do you believe you can heal?
Mm-hmm.
Yes. Okay, what about the thought behind the thought? Oh, maybe not.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Okay.
And how
Um,
often is it when you get to, even when you're doing your healing journey of not physical healing, but you're always
mm,
like, no, I'm fine. I've worked through that. And then you get to a point again and you're like, wait, no, it is that behind the thought, just being like, no, we're still here. And
yeah,
just
there's
getting
another
that
layer.
voice. Yeah. How
And
interesting.
then with each of those layers, if we can view it as, okay, this is another layer of me stepping even further into my power, of
Mm-hmm.
realizing my infinite power. But we need to learn that in layers, right? It's like when you start to, I don't really like to use the word manifest because I'm changing my perspective on that word, but for lack of a better word right now, when you're trying to call something into this timeline, you can start small with that and manifest a car park, because it's
Mm-hmm.
like, what do you got to lose? If you don't find the rock star car park, you'll find one somewhere else and you might need to walk. It's like you're not going to lose much. But if you can start to get good at it on those things that you think don't really matter, then can you start to use that skill of playing with energy and reality and timelines in bigger things? And
Mm-hmm.
we'll start doing that. Yeah.
Yeah.
I've been playing around with that the last maybe, I don't know, 6 to 12 months. I started in areas that it seemingly didn't really matter, and started to play with energy, and then started to move into different areas and started to play more around with energy and timelines. And yeah, it's been an interesting journey.
Yeah, I love that. I think what comes with that is like having a clear vision about what you want as well. Like you wanting that car park. But if you're like, oh, it doesn't matter to me if I don't want that car park, then you can't really manifest it. Does that make sense? You have to have that clear vision of what you're aiming for.
Um, I think the obsession can get in the way of it actually happening. So maybe it's like, it doesn't matter if I don't get it. And that may be why you get it, because it
Mm,
doesn't matter.
that's
It's
true.
we're too fixated on it because it's like, I need it because I'm coming from a place of lack. Yeah, there's
Yeah, that's fine line there. But if I didn't know that I really or like didn't focus on the car park, yeah. But
because
if
yeah,
I
if it
wasn't
didn't
aiming for
happen,
something,
yeah,
yeah.
then you're not so
Mm.
disappointed 'cause it's just a car park.
Yeah, it's true.
Right?
But letting go and trusting is the main part.
Mm.
Mm,
Yeah.
interesting.
I
Um,
don't know the main part, but yeah, it's part of it. Yeah. Maybe we can
okay.
do a podcast on this another
We
time.
should. We should. I would
Yeah.
love to.
But I'll talk to you off here and share with you what I've been doing.
Yeah, that sounds good.
Mm.
Um, I would love to know. So we've already talked about so much, but I would love to know, do you have any like hard days still while you're doing what you're doing? I want everyone to know that listens to this podcast that it's not all sunshine and rainbows, that you can't tackle
Mm.
everything, all these big goals that you have without having some self-doubt or some moments where your inner dialogue takes over. Also, do you have an inner dialogue? Because not everyone does.
Um, I think we all have an inner dialogue. Yeah.
I've met people
Yeah.
that don't. Yeah, they
Oh
have no
shit.
voice in their head that speaks to them. But just it didn't make sense to me because I heard the study. I've seen the study where, like your brain lights up, the speech part of your brain lights up to be able to tell you the answer to a problem at 8 second delay there. And then I was like, okay, so how do the people that clearly tell me they don't have an inner dialogue, they don't hear a voice, how do they find out the answer to their problem? I don't know. Um,
And then it doesn't make sense to me. I can't get my
I
head
don't
around
know, but so
it.
I needed to know. I was like, I'm gonna ask everyone, do you have an inner dialogue?
Oh
Um,
yeah, no, I have an
is
inner
it
dialogue.
is it always nice to you? Is there days, so if it's not nice to you on certain days, what kind of things is it telling you? I just want to see if we can
Um,
relate.
yeah, it depends on the topic. Like there's often a self-doubt that comes in.
Mm-hmm.
Like there's a not enoughness story that creeps in every now and then, or an overcritical, oh my goodness, I have such an overcritical part that comes in and just criticizes, like, oh, you could have done that better, or see what you did there, or you forgot to do that, or
Mm-hmm.
you shouldn't have done that. And so there's like this shaming part that comes in, but I also welcome that and sit with it and do my inner parts work with those parts. It's the unshaming is so important when we start doing all this inner work. Yeah. And so instead of me shaming that part for being present and then thinking what's wrong with me because that part was present, I lean into it and have a conversation with it and include it in the whole process. Like it's there for a reason. And often each part that comes in is there just trying to protect us from something else. So it's getting curious with self-compassion and removing the shaming, not removing the shaming part, but like not shaming yourself for what is happening internally, because there's always a gift, which is the lesson, and the learning, which is the growth, right?
Mm-hmm.
So it's about remaining curious with self-compassion through that. And there's going
Beautiful.
to be messy parts, yeah. Until I bring complete awareness into what's happening, yeah, there is some negativity that starts to unfold in these conversations, or two different parts internally are arguing. And I was like, yo, guys, let's have a group hug here.
We're all trying to do the same thing.
I don't want to hug her. I was like, come on, okay, let's hold hands. Let's start there.
Mm-hmm. That's so
And have a
true.
conversation. And it doesn't need to be serious. Like, oh my goodness, a dear girlfriend I'm catching up with tomorrow, and we did our family constellation course together. She is a hoot. I love her. And she explained to me how she has conversations with her internal parts, and she has fun with it. Even when it's a shitstorm up in there, she's like, all right, bring some humor into this.
That's all you can do. Yeah. I named my inner voice Becky when she's being mean. I heard it on something and I was like, no, that's accurate. That's the little bully that's there. But you can make friends with
Becky,
her.
Becky the bitch. Sorry, I need
Yeah.
to
Yeah. When you like when you feel self-doubt or something, how do you shape that? Like how is that helping you?
um For me, it depends, because the story can be different. It could be a fear-based story of failure,
Mm-hmm.
which is why the self-doubt's like, oh no, you can't do that. Don't do that. We might fail. And it's like, but maybe we won't.
Mm-hmm.
So it's similar to
What's the
how
worst that could happen?
yeah, it's similar
Yeah.
to how when I'm doing EFT sessions with my clients is, we tap on all of those limiting belief stories. And then when that's got back to neutral, then we install possibilities,
Mm-hmm.
because we are creators. And so once we really live from that place and that knowing that we are creators, what do you want to create?
Beautiful.
So
Yeah.
yeah, but there's often fear, but beyond the fear is where the magic is too. But look, I'm human. Whew.
Yeah, of course.
I'm,
I
yeah.
think that a lot of people that haven't started, whatever their big thing is, though, they sit in that and they go, oh, surely they don't have any of that. So I just want to bring attention to that.
I think
Um,
also,
yeah.
sorry.
No, go ahead.
I think also it's looking back on your journey when you did scary things.
Mm-hmm.
You
It's
got through
huge.
it. And it doesn't mean that you had to fully succeed, whatever that looks like for you, but you still gave it a crack, right? There would
Mm-hmm.
have been there'd be many things that you did across your life that would have been scary, like riding a horse bareback, or like, I'm just thinking of my own stories,
I
doing the
love doing it.
study
Yeah.
at 35. Like,
Mm-hmm.
there's always big things that we've done. Like, I went off and traveled overseas. I left when I was 19 and went to a country where they didn't speak English. I moved to and lived in Japan. Um, yeah, like every one of us has done something that's at our edge. And I think when we're younger, we probably do quote unquote scary things, um, because we don't have the life experience of the failure. So we don't think that we're going to fail at it. But
Yeah.
can you then connect to that previous version of yourself and draw on that, create that courage that you had? Because it's still in there. That
Mm-hmm.
20-year-old you or the 15-year-old you or the 30-year-old you, it's still in you. It's still a part of you. Connect to her.
Yeah, that's huge. And I think
Yeah.
if you're that young, if anyone's 20 listening, I don't know if they would be, but please do lots of things and experience a
Yeah.
lot. Because then, yeah, you can draw on it. I've always thought the same thing. If we didn't do those
There is no
things, what would we
failure.
draw on? Yeah.
Yeah, there's no failure. I remember when I was learning to juggle, and every time we would drop the ball, the guy that was coaching us through the juggling, he was just like, because some people are like, oh, I've done it wrong. And he's like, but did you
Hmm.
learn? You know that you threw it too high, you didn't throw it high, didn't throw it high enough, or you threw it out too far. It's just a learn. So there
Hmm.
isn't a failure in life. It's always a learn. And can we just see it as that? It's like, oh, okay, so that didn't work. So let's try this.
Yeah. Just put the
Oh,
reps in and keep going. Try the next one. I love
yeah.
that. Um, quick question. So what have been like the most rewarding moments in your life? I know this might not be quick, but I want to know what comes to mind. Why do they stand out?
Um, uh, how I felt when I got my degree.
Oh, I love that.
Yeah, that feeling of accomplishment. I did a
Mhm.
chef apprenticeship and I didn't complete it.
Yeah.
I started a beauty therapy course and decided I don't want to do this for the rest of my life. And I was like, if I don't see it long term, I'm not wasting my time to finish it just to get a piece of paper I'm not going to use.
Hmm.
I didn't finish it.
But if you tried it and you did everything that you needed out of it. So most people wouldn't
Yeah,
even try those things.
no, I mean, like doing the chef apprenticeship, even like though partially I got to third year, um, that helped me on my healing journey because my food prep, do it like that. I had a
Mm.
friend here for dinner the other night. She's like, whoa, that was so quick. Like,
Mm.
you put
Love
that up
that.
in 30 minutes. And I was like, yep.
That's all you
So,
needed out of it to help you
yeah,
later on in life. Yeah, it's like you
yeah,
can't see that until it happens.
no. But yeah, with my naturopathy degree, Americans say it different, don't they? Naturopathy is how you guys say
Yeah,
it.
yeah.
Oh, maybe I'm saying it wrong.
I can't tell anymore. Everyone says it weirdly. Go ahead. Yeah.
Yeah, so that was really tough moving through that. And even when it was tough, I didn't want to give up because I just had this knowingness that this was my calling. I could feel it in every fiber of my being, right from my core, that yeah, I'm going to finish this. And it's not out of stubbornness to finish something. It was out of the it just felt complete alignment. And I
Hmm.
knew it was going to be hard, but I knew it was going to be worth it. Yeah, and that's what kept me going. And because I knew I was on purpose, I think is how I
Yeah.
felt. What I knew, I wanted more women to know what I knew about, having a thyroid autoimmune condition. Like it's not, it's not what you're taught.
Hmm.
You don't need to be on meds forever. You don't need to be sick forever. It's not something that you have to learn to live with. And that model is pushed across many other different illnesses. I remember when I had depression and my doctor was just like, well, you just stay on the medication and you just learn to live with it.
Oh my gosh. Yeah.
I don't have depression today and I'm on no medication for anything. And yeah, I have moments in life where I have a down day. That doesn't mean I have depression. Or I might have
Hmm.
a moment that could be like a week, or it could be even 2 weeks that I'm moving through something that I'm resisting moving through. Like I'm resisting an aspect of the growth that's been presented. And that's why I feel shit, because I'm resisting it. But once I allow it to move through me and be expressed, then I'm through it, and that's what I've learned. So yeah, I have low moments. It's part of being human. That's what our experience is about, the contrast, the highs, the lows, the ups, the downs, the rain, the sunshine, the day, the night. And so, yeah, can
Yeah.
you embrace ups and
Without the
downs?
night, you wouldn't appreciate the day, really.
And vice
Um,
versa, the
yeah.
little stars in the sky, you can't see them in the daytime.
Yeah.
There's
It's true.
beauty in all of it.
Yeah, I love
Yeah.
that. That's my experience with like I had anxiety and depression too, and it's like, why did we think that had to be our forever?
Yeah.
There's a lot there that you can move through. It's a whole other episode that we should do. Um,
Yes.
so I usually end episode with just what's one piece of advice you'd love to leave the listeners with. You have left a lot of good tidbits, but do you have anything you might want to add?
Trust in your internal guidance. Trust it. Trust the whispers. Listen to the whispers and follow what is lighting you up or has got you curious. Like if
Mm.
there's something, often people say that they heard me speak on a podcast and so they followed it. So there might be something I've mentioned in this that got you curious to go and explore that thing. Follow the curiosity because it's your internal guidance system. So that's with everything in your life. And you are powerful beyond measure. So just stay on your journey of remembering, and wherever you pick up those pieces that help you to remember who you are. Yeah, there's no right or wrong way to do things. There's no rush. There's absolutely no rush. You are right on time. Wherever you're at, you're right on time. Everything will unfold perfectly for you. The answers will find you. You don't need to try so hard. Yeah.
Beautiful. Couldn't have said that better. Amazing. So I'll just wrap up there because what else can we say after that gorgeous piece? Where can my listeners find you online?
I hang out mostly on Instagram. It's brontemay.naturopath. Yeah. You can find me on Facebook too, but I'm mostly on Instagram.
All right. Well, I'll drop the links below, but did want everyone to know. Do you have any offers that you might want to put out?
You can
just
find
work
the
with
info
you
on my
one-on-one.
website. Actually, yeah. I mean, I mostly do one-on-one work. I do run group programs, but not often. So if you're interested, let me know, and I might be able to schedule one in and put the feelers out so I can program for you. But I run a one-on-one 12-week program, and you can work with me one-on-one. My healing sessions aren't actually up on my website. So if anything I've spoken to today and you want to explore what that looks and feels like for you and experience it, just reach out and start a conversation. Jump into my DMs on Instagram or pop to my contact page on my website. Yeah.
That sounds good. Yeah. Listen to yourself and start a conversation. Amazing. Thank you so much for being here and sharing so much of your soul and so much of your passion. That was really amazing.
It's been an absolute joy to be in conversation here with you today. And yeah, thanks for having me.
Thank you so much for listening. I do hope you enjoyed that. We are exploring our comfort zones and our edges with every episode, every guest, and every episode I do by myself. If you have enjoyed this, please follow us on Spotify, leave a 5-star review or a review on Apple Podcasts. It would mean the world to us. We get to grow and have more informative guests on, more provocative guests if that's what you want. I am so down to see where this grows. In the meantime, follow me on Instagram at amanda.petra__, and I would love to chat with you in the DMs. What hit home, what didn't, what came to mind. It would be really cool. So I will see you there, and thank you so much. See you in the next episode. Although our podcast presenters and all guests strive to deliver accurate information, they cannot address your unique circumstances comprehensively. Therefore, the content shared by any speaker on this platform is not personalized advice for individuals and should not substitute professional medical or health guidance. It is crucial to consult a qualified medical professional or for personalized advice. Additionally, always seek guidance from a healthcare provider before making decisions regarding your health or that of your family. Furthermore, it's essential to recognize that what works for one person may not work for another, emphasizing individual responsibility for health decisions as promoted on our show. Thank you so much for listening to the episode, and we will see you on the next one.